Hello, today we are going to work on adding and subtracting fractions, and we're also then going to have a second video about multiplying and dividing fractions. One of the things that we're going to make is this foldable right here, and you'll get it and you'll cut along the dotted lines and then fold on the solid lines. And it's nice because you can take this easily home. It can go right into your notebook. We can even glue it in there if we want, and then that way you have it if you happen to forget your notes that are in your binder at school, or you don't want to take your whole binder home. But adding fractions, it says it's easy, you see, but first you need to find your LCD. Simplify, reduce, take it to its lowest term. So, in other words, we need a common denominator. So this, remember, is the numerator up top, and this is the denominator on the bottom. And in order to be able to add our numerators, we have to have the same denominator. Well, 6 and 5 are definitely not the same. So we know there's something we need to do there. So if I take a look at 1/6 and I take a look at 3/5, I have a 6 and I have a 5. So I can look at all of the factors of 6 and 5 until I find the smallest one, or the least one, the lowest term, that they have in common. So if I count by 6s, I get 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. And as soon as I see one stop with a 0, or end with a 0, I know I might have something in the 5s that will match up. So if I then go and I count by 5s, lo and behold, there it is. They both have 30 in common. Well, to get from 6 to 30, I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So it means I have to multiply my bottom by 5 to get to 30. Whatever I do the bottom of my fraction, my denominator, I have to do to my numerator. So 1 out of 6 is the same as 5 out of 30. Or 1/6 is the same as 5/30. When I did my 3/5, I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I need to multiply my denominator by 6 to get to 30. And then I need to multiply my numerator by 6. And I get 18. So 3 out of 5 is the same as 18 out of 30. Or 3/5 is the same as 18/30. So now I have 5/30 and 18/30. They have the same denominator. You can leave them up and down or vertical like this. You can also then take them and go horizontal if you would like. So you could rewrite them as 5/30 plus 18/30. I did all that work to find that common denominator, so I keep it in my answer. I don't add it once I find it. That is the size of my pieces, and so I can't suddenly change the size of my pieces when I'm adding and subtracting. So 5 plus 18 is 23, so my answer is 23/30. And I always check to make sure I can't reduce, but if I've done a good job finding my lowest common denominator, they shouldn't necessarily need to reduce that. Typically, I won't. Now, subtracting fractions, you're going to find we do the same thing. We have to have a common denominator. Well, one of the things that happens is we get so used to needing to find a common denominator that if we look and it's actually already a common denominator, sometimes we don't notice that as much, and then we're trying to find a common denominator when we already have one. So don't let that mess you up there. But we need a common denominator, and look, our denominator, as you notice, is already the same. So if our denominator is already the same, I can just go ahead and I can subtract the numerators. So I keep my 14s because that is the size of the pieces. They are one whole that is cut into 14 pieces. So 3 minus 8 is going to give me a -5. So my answer is -5/14. Our notes then that go with this, we have some practice here. And you'll notice at the top they say common denominator. You got to get that common denominator first. And then you can add or subtract the numerators, keeping that common denominator that you found. So I'm going to demonstrate a couple of those right now. 1/2 and 1/3 rather. I'm adding them together. They do not have a common denominator right now because once again, my numerator is on the top. Make sure this is in the frame where you guys can see it. And my denominator is on the bottom. I'm going to go by 2s. I've got 2, 4, 6. Like, 3's 3, 6. There's my common denominator. I'm going to turn them both into a 6. I think it's easier to do that when they're vertical. If you feel comfortable doing that with them horizontal, please feel free to do that. So if I have 1/2 and I need to get it to a 6 on the bottom, and I have 1/3 and I need to get it to a 6 in the denominator, I multiplied by 1, 2. So times 2 to get there. So I have to do the same thing to the numerator that I did to the denominator. Up here I went 1, 2, 3, so times 3. I do that to both. So now I have 3, 6 plus 2, 6. Once again, if you want to bring those back horizontal, you're more than welcome to do that. And 3 plus 2 is 5. And I keep the 6, so my answer to that first one is 5/6. What I want you to do is I want you to pause this video and I want you to try the other ones to see if you get them correct. So you can check your answers to the addition problems up there. I wanted to show you one of the mixed number problems. The easiest way to do these right now is to go ahead and turn them into improper fractions first. So if you don't remember how to do that, it's the whole number times the denominator, and then you add the numerator. So 3 times 5 plus 2 gives me 15 plus 2, which is 17 over 5, because I'm going to keep that denominator. And then I'm going to do 1 times 7 plus 4, so 7 plus 4 is 11 over 7. Then I need my common denominator, and one easy way to do it besides writing out all those terms is just to multiply those two numbers times each other to find my new denominator. Now this might make you have to reduce the fraction later on, but that's okay. I feel like we can handle that. So we've got 17 over 5, and we've got 11 over 7. And I'm just going to do times 5, and up here I'm going to do times 7, which gives me a denominator of 35. 11 times 5 is 55. 17 times 7 gives me 119. 7 times 7 is 49. Put down the 9, carry the 4. That's where I got the 119 from. When I add those up, I'm going to come up with 35 in the bottom, and I'm going to get 174 on the top. I'm going to need to turn that back into a mixed number, so I'm trying to think how many 35s go into 174. That might take you a little bit more time there. So I'm going to do, alright, so we've got 174 over 35, and we need to turn that back into a mixed number. So if I have 174, over 35, I'm going to see how many 35s I can get out of 174. I've got that bigger number on the numerator. I know I'm going to be turning back into one of these mixed numbers, which makes sense because 3 plus 1 is 4. So I know my answer is going to be around 4, and then I'm going to be adding, this is a little more than half, this is a little less than half, maybe one more whole on there, so maybe an answer close to 5. So I can think, I think it's going to be close to 5 if I look at that estimation part. So 35 times 5 is 175. So we don't quite have enough. So it's going to be 4, and I'm going to have 1 left over. So my answer is going to be 4 and 1/35 on that mixed number one. When I subtract, I'm going to be doing the exact same thing that I did up top. This one already has that common denominator, so I keep it. And then I'm going to say 15 minus 3, which is 12. Now I can reduce that. So 12 out of 24, I can reduce them both by, I could go by 2s, I could go by 4s, I could go by 6s, but I can also go by 12, which is the biggest one I can do. So if I divide them both by 12, I end up with an answer of 1/2. Over here, I'm going to need to find that common denominator, so I can count by 6s. And I can count by 15s. So 5, 6, I need to get to 30, and 2 15ths, I need to get to 30 as well. I'm going to do times 2, and I will do times 5. So 25 30ths minus 4 30ths is what I'm doing. So 25 minus 4 is 21 over 30, and I ask myself, can I reduce that? They do have a 3 in common, which lets me know that I get 7 over 10 as my final answer there. And that is how we add and subtract fractions and mixed numbers.